I always do.
Yeah, this
I
is
do
like
every
the
time.
foolishness before we start. Yeah, I thought it'd be nice to introduce ourselves. So, hey guys, the program is called Related. The podcast is Related. So it's because we are, which is obvious. I'm the mama. Just so you know, this is Sarah. She's my second. I am the biological mom of these two, and Dominic's the baby of the family.
Yes.
And there are two more sisters and 12 grandchildren. So hopefully we will be able to bring them in.
Well, episode of all of them.
Yeah, we should.
We should do an
Yeah, right.
episode with the whole
It'll be
family.
like them.
Yeah.
Lots of bloopers.
What's that? What's that cartoon? Is it Sing? The pig has got like all these piglets. That's literally what our
That's
family
what
is.
it will look like. There's not enough room in the studio. They'll be all over the floor.
Literally.
But there is.
It's going to be Roman. You're not calling these cameras over.
So there's 12 grandchildren, 4 children.
Yeah.
And
9
I don't
boys,
know how many
3
of us.
girls.
We've
9
got
boys
literally
and 3 girls.
How many of us all together now? The whole
It's in the
family.
20s.
21, 22?
I think 22.
There's 4 kids, 12 grandchildren.
No, 12
That's
grandkids.
16,
2, 4,
17,
6,
18, 19, 20.
8,
No,
9.
20, 21. Yeah, 21.
There's 21 of us
Yeah.
and counting.
Yeah.
So that don't get stuck on that number. So we're still
Yep.
we're still growing.
We'll do an episode with the whole family.
Yeah, we'll try and do that one day.
And the oldest grandson is 19, and the youngest is
So.
8 weeks, 9
Cohen.
weeks?
No,
It's Ava.
Ava is
the granddaughter. She's the
yeah,
youngest.
Yeah.
Ava's the youngest.
So
She's
10 weeks.
What are they now? Gosh,
I feel like
they're
beginning of
like
April.
the last
Yeah.
2 grands were born
Nearly
4
3
days
months,
apart.
Yeah.
There's just
one
3
was born
months
at
now, I
home.
think. 3 months.
Yeah.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the oldest is 19 of the grands, and the youngest is 3 months. We've got 2 youngest at 3 months. One came so quick. The dad, Jerome, had to deliver her. She decided she didn't want to come at hospital, so she popped out real quick. But let's jump into the show. Hope you've been enjoying the show, guys.
Yeah.
Love to hear more from you and any comments.
And any topics that you want us to...
Any topics that you want us to talk about, that would be great to hear from you. But there's something that caught my attention, which is, so it's a pretty sad story. This whole family got wiped out last week. Except the dad. It was the mum and the 2 daughters. And it was just such a awful thing. And at the beginning, when the story broke, no one knew what the motive was, who done it. But obviously they caught the guy a day or so afterwards. And I think from what the story said, it was one of the daughter's ex-boyfriend. And so that story, in all its tragedy, and we're gonna talk about rage and emotions and how this world that we live in today, people seem to be getting more and more out of control emotionally. People flip at the drop of a hat. And so this story, maybe it's a rejection thing with him. He couldn't handle, maybe she ended it. I don't know. We don't know the whole story of why he did such an awful thing and wanted to hurt the family like that. But then the story popped up about his brother, who had just recently. So his brother, the brother of the man suspected of killing 3 women with a crossbow. Can you imagine that? So that's premeditated.
Yeah, that's the most premeditated
well, we
thing,
don't have
yeah.
one. It's not a thing
you
that
not
you
gonna
have in
find
your
one?
house.
Yeah, but also, like, with a crossbow, you can't, like, load it like a gun. I presume
It's like you pull it. Well, it depends what one it is, I guess. But
Yeah, but you can't have multiple, right? So
No, it's like you load every arrow, I think. Yeah.
Loading it. So.
But to even pick up
But
that to go,
the fear
kill
of
someone
this
is
person
Yeah.
reloading, and then your family's like, if he shot somebody, your family's there panicking.
yeah, but he shot them
You're
all
not
in the
gonna,
house, right?
You're not going to run out. Yeah, it was done in,
So
in
that's
the
what I'm
house.
saying. They probably saw one person get killed.
Yeah.
Let me just say,
Well,
trigger
Yeah, but it's
warning.
your family,
Trigger
so you're not
warning
going
on
to
this
run
as well,
away.
but-
You're
Yeah,
probably
but
going to
even-
want
Yeah,
to
it's the
help.
shock of
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah,
on.
the shock.
By the
It's
time you realise,
unbelief.
you probably killed them all.
Yeah.
Like if someone, God forbid, anyone's come in the house and shot you with a crossbow, like you're gonna be sitting there like frozen probably by the time you realise what's
And-
going
But
on.
even if you try and run, because you don't know where they were all found.
Yeah, exactly.
Even
Yeah.
if you try and run, depending on where he was.
Well,
most,
there
most
was there
UK
was
homes,
there was a thing
you
that
only
said they were previously tied up, so he'd
Okay.
got into the house and
Okay.
somehow managed to tie them up. So he probably had them tied up, already restrained before he done that, because then he untied them afterwards.
Okay.
So they were tied up before. So he
Yeah.
must have gone and overpowered them,
Yeah.
tied them up, and then did what he did and then untied them, which is quite awful. But the story came up about his brother, his older brother, Bradley Clifford, the older brother of Carl Clifford. He's it brought up that he is in prison. 6 years ago, Bradley Clifford was handed a life sentence at the Old Bailey for killing an 18-year-old who smashed a bottle on his prized red Mustang in 2017. Bradley Clifford ploughed into Joshua Francis, who was only 19, who was riding a moped with his passenger. He drunkenly chased their scooter through Enfield at nearly double the speed limit on the wrong side of the road. The two teenagers were flung into the air when he hit them. So he hit them with his car. While Mr. Francis escaped serious injury by pure chance, Mr. Khan was gravely injured. In an intense rage, Bradley Clifford continued the attack as he lay on the street, punching him hard 9 times, the Old Bailey heard. So we see here this over a car. Okay, you know, most of us would probably be annoyed. Of course we would be. Somebody smashed a bottle on your car, especially if they'd done it intentionally. So there is that rage that could have been.
It's that instant rage as well. That's
There's that
dangerous.
instant rage, but to chase somebody down,
It's a road
ram
rage.
them off their
Yeah.
scooter with your vehicle, and then as if that wasn't enough, you go over and start to punch them.
My thing is, for this to happen with 2 brothers, I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
I think however something's happened throughout their childhood or how they were raised or what they've seen that's affected them to be like this, or they've seen anger or from a father figure or something that's shaped this or instilled this into them.
Well, I think that we're going to see this more and more, to be honest.
Pull
with
your
you.
microphone in a bit.
I think we're going to see this more and more because of the way that we're raising children in the society.
Yeah.
I think that we're raising children to be very entitled. I think that we are raising children to also feel like they can experience any emotion. I see it all the time, you know, this gentle parenting, you know, let kids be in their emotions, be in their feelings, whatever. You can clearly see I don't agree with any of that. You know, I say to my kids, I don't care how tired you are, you still respect me.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much nonsense, to be honest, being shoved into our kids' heads. You know, kids are now...
And there's no previous example of what that looks like and how it's going to
there's
turn out.
no boundaries being set for children now, you know, and we're labeling everything. And I'm not saying that, you know, there's not disorders, but I think that we're way too quick to label misbehavior as something else. And I think that there's not enough accountability. I know this is going to be very unpopular to all the parents that are free parenting out there, but I think that there's not enough responsibility put on parents in terms of what the way that I'm raising my child, the impact that that's going to have on the greater society. And I know for me, when I'm raising my children, I'm very, very conscious of the people they're going to become. The reason why you don't steal is because you don't steal. Like, that's not something that you ever is ever okay. You don't disrespect other people's homes. You don't walk into other people's homes and not say hello, not greet people. You know, I'm constantly calling my children back. Children are going to be children and they're going to forget and they're going to do what they're doing. But I think that there's not enough onus on us as parents to actually think, what are we raising and how is that going to impact society? And when I'm allowing my children to get into fits of rage at home and we're like, oh, Johnny, stop. Oh, you know, you need to just take a time out. Or, you know what, are you feeling really sad right now? Okay, Johnny, well, when you stop feeling sad, you come find mummy. No, Johnny needs to learn to manage that.
I think parents today don't seem to. I'm obviously an old school parent. So I've raised 4 of you, and you guys were raised that was never acceptable. And I was on a recent flight, coming back from holiday recently, and this child cried. It was a night flight, so you can imagine. And I've got loads of schedule. As soon as I land, literally, I was running from one appointment to the next. I didn't get a wink of sleep. And it was in the morning when I realised there was 2 of them. It's twins.
Oh, wow.
Everybody in our section looked like they'd been hit by a bus. Everybody's eyes looked glazed over. The children cried and whined the entire flight. And every time, and I gave up. I was trying to sleep and I gave up. I'm like, you know what, I might as well just sit up and watch a movie. And literally the parents just sat there with the children on their lap. And I did feel sorry for them, because I'm thinking they must be so uncomfortable themselves that they are aware that the kids are keeping everyone awake. And they looked exhausted, and they looked so tired. But it was just like, for me, I was raised that you train your children at home, so that when you are in public, you're not now trying to do the work. It's easy to rein in and train them. And kids can be trained to be quiet. You know, from you guys were small. You grew up in a church environment, so you were having to sit at times in an adult service, which was like a conference. You know, you're sitting there and there's a speaker, and apart from the speaker, the room is silent. But you guys had to learn to sit still, and I wasn't going to sit at the back, and I wasn't going to keep leaving the room because so I trained you lot, and sometimes it would just be the finger to the lips means shh, you know, if your levels got a little bit higher.
Sometimes the drumsticks. There's a scale.
When we were a little bit more boisterous, Dominic.
But anyway, I think that as well, it's so multifaceted, isn't it? Because the reality is there's just lack of discipline in some instances where you're just not training them, or you are training them, because untraining is also training.
It's all training.
I remember when Ezra used to do this thing where he'd get angry and he'd be like, "Argh!" and he would like clench his fists and
do this
anger thing. And I addressed that and I hit it over and over again until he stopped. And I was like, no, we don't do that. And I said, Ezra, you use your words. You don't do that. You don't suppress anger, and you know. And he stopped doing it now.
But he did it the other day, actually.
Well, he hasn't done it. All the time.
But it was playing angel's advocate, right? Here, I don't like to say that one. So, like, say you saying that, some people might see that like you're suppressing his emotions.
Yes.
Well, you have to be, because
it's not suppressing. It's not suppressing. The reality is that each and every single one of us, as adults or children, need to learn effective coping mechanisms. And the key as a parent is to teach our children effective coping mechanisms. So you holding anger and releasing it in a negative way is not an effective coping mechanism. So as a parent, it's my job not to suppress it and push you down and then you stay in the corner and you're silent. Like I said to Ezra, no, talk to me. Why are you angry? That's not the right response, Ezra. This is, and I show him, no, why are you angry? Oh, okay, okay, so Kayla took that.
Right?
Let's, but I'm making him talk it through. I'm making him communicate. And so instead of screaming, instead of going and whacking his sister, instead of whatever. And I think that that's the thing, that we don't give our kids coping mechanisms. And what we don't realise is that 5-year-old becomes a 50-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 50-year-old. And that is where then someone throws breaks a bottle in a car. I think all of us would be enraged if someone broke a bottle in our car, the thing that would stop most of us plowing the person down, ramming them with a car, is the fear of consequence. That's what would stop most of us. But if you've never been raised in a home where there's consequences,
but as human beings, we have to be taught coping mechanisms. Otherwise, there would be anarchy. And from as a human being, you're taught how to cope with. We learn everything. Every behavior is learned as human beings. And to leave something, how are we going to discover that's what's right and what's wrong? So throughout our childhood, growing up, we're learning behavior. And when you look at for example, what was happening on the streets of France the other day. I can't imagine any of my kids, and I would be absolutely shocked if I saw any of you pop up on the screen looting and rioting over what? Because your party didn't win, or a different party won. Now you're on the street, you're torching cars, you're throwing petrol bombs and all kinds of stuff. Where did that behavior come from? How did that child ever get to the place that they would see themselves even in an environment like that?
Well, I think there's also the herd culture, isn't it? And the herd mentality of what you see, you copy, so I think that also there's that element in like those instances where a lot of people just get impassioned or enraged because the person next to me is, and I think I can get away with it. Like when we saw the Brixton riots that time, it's very
would
similar.
you have got caught up in the herd
No, I
culture?
wouldn't, because I have been raised not to do that.
Exactly, that's
but
what I'm
saying that there's some people that haven't necessarily been given those moral guidelines and those. But I think as well, what I was going to say is that there's so many multifacets to it, because yes, you've got the lack of parenting and the lack of discipline, which I think is a very real thing. And I don't think that we're actually going to see the real manifestation of the seriousness of the lack of discipline being removed until probably the next 20 years. Because there's a load of kids coming up that I think that will give every person a run for their money, to be honest, because we've got people growing up that have no concept or value of life. But then I think the other part of it is also, like, I don't know if you've seen that movie Supercell, the series Supercell.
No.
It's basically, it's got a bit of swearing, so you might not like it, but it's basically it's basically like based around, like, it's almost like an Avengers with kind of vibe.
My friend's in it.
It's where basically people that have the sickle cell gene, it kind of turns
the next
into,
generation, basically.
Yeah, but it turns into like a super.
Basically, if you had sickle cell, we would have we wouldn't have sickle cell, but it's like a super cell. So we've gained abilities from you having sickle cell.
So they basically have like these superpowers as a result of this this
sickle cell
gene. And then so they can do different things, like the Avengers, like they can move things, they can like fly, they can do all these different things, whatever. But anyway, the story is they follow, like, it's actually very well done actually, but they basically follow the lives of all of these different people. But the one that I wanted to really speak to, I can't remember his name now, the one that's in the gang.
Oh, his name's Taser.
Right? So there's this guy called Taser who's in this gang, but I think it's just very well written, because it just shows the parallels between this guy that is zero regard for life, because he's learnt to survive as he carries a knife. They literally will stab each other at the drop of the hat. Really, like, they'll shoot. It's just really graphic and horrible to watch, but very real in terms of the reality of the UK at the moment.
Take away like the superhero element.
It's actually a very relatable story. But then you see Taser at home with his grandmother, waiting for her to eat, holding the bowl for her to wash her hands. So there's this conflict, and then in there you see Taser's conflict within his own mother being missing. And I think that there's also an element that we also need to talk about in terms of a generation that's growing up fractured and not knowing how to manage that, not knowing how to process that, growing up in on estates where if you're not carrying a knife, the chance of survival is minimum. So I think that there's so much in this anger and managing emotions topic that the state of the UK at the moment is there is a huge impact on gun and knife culture, and I think that people are being so entrenched into gang warfare as well that almost value for life has almost somehow been removed and tainted, where now taking someone's life doesn't hold the same consequence. Does that make sense? And like, these are kids. I think there's so many kids that have been raised by great parents.
Yeah.
That have parents that they're out there doing the most and
some of the
working
influence
and everything.
isn't just what the area that they grew up in. I think a lot of the influence again probably is down to what they play, the games they play.
Yeah.
What they see, what they watch, what they listen
because
to.
you've got some very graphic games nowadays, right?
Yeah, but I mean, apart from the games, even just what you have on TV or YouTube is.
Like, we're like becoming desensitized.
There's nothing that stops you from accessing anything. You could just say, they ask you how old you are. I just click whatever year is acceptable, and then you're in. There's nothing like, it's like a full store almost. You know what I mean? Like, you think it's like
it's like kids. It's like secure. What should be on the adult shelf is now accessible to the children.
Kids not to pick it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think also it's like, and also there's so many factors in it, because the cost of living is ridiculous. Parents are having to work more. They're not as home as much as they can be or would like to be. You know, marriages are splitting up, divorces on an all-time high. Your kids are being raised in single parent homes. A lot of times left to their own devices, left to make their way to school. Like, so it's all of these things that also as parents, like, it can be difficult to pick up on those emotions, those feelings, like to be, if you can't see it, you know, you don't necessarily know to challenge it. Does that make sense? So I don't think we can just say it's down to, you know, disciplining your children. I think that's a huge factor in terms of anger, but I think like what Dominic said as well, we're being so infiltrated with violence now. You know, if you look back to old movies, you know, the way they would die, it was like, you know, now it's so graphic. Yeah.
It used to be the tomato ketchup.
Even now, though, it's like there's money in death. That's the issue that we are right now. Even like, same as hospitals, same as prisons, they get paid to have people bodies inside, right? You get paid to have bodies in the hospital and the beds. If there's no bodies in the hospital, you're not making money. Yeah. You know, same way as cancer medication, you get paid from
people being sick.
I think it kills more people than it helps, but still, they're still the ones that you have to go to get chemo. Chemo, like the chances of survival of chemo is near enough slim, but it makes money. You know, medication makes money. Yeah. Even in certain black musician artists, they take out life insurance on the artists, so they get paid if they get killed from these things. You know, so it's like there's no. It's like death makes money or violence makes money for these certain people.
But don't you think also like death has almost been glamorized?
Of course,
as well?
Very much.
It's been really glamorized, and you know, but I think as well, like just generally, I don't know about you, but like even on the road, I'm always so shocked at both men and women how quickly they get angry. Like you pause for like 2 seconds longer.
I feel like it's the environment as well, though.
It's like sometimes I'm like, why are you so angry? It's 8:30 in the morning.
We were at Brent Cross one day, and your dad went to go into parking space, and this woman zipped in behind him. Yeah. And he's like, excuse me, I was trying to go in there. And she was like, da, 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 da. Yeah. She's like reeled off a torrent of swear words at him. I was like, oh my God. That's the thing, even
that, you go send it to the wrong person, but you get boxed up in your car.
I was going to say that the reality is also, we do have to recognize that we are dealing, because even in that scenario that you said, to be honest, both of them had anger issues in that scenario, because while you breaking a bottle on someone's car, he had anger issues. Yeah. He just came off the worst.
It was two emotions.
It was two emotions that were out of control.
Clash. You just bucked up the wrong person.
I used to be very hot-headed, like in those like reactive moments where you're not even.
Yeah, you remember one occasion.
I'm not going to say possessed, but it's like your reaction is like my body, like it's like, I don't know if you've seen Avengers. When they go to see that the Doctor Strange and they like tap them, they come out of their body a bit. You've seen that with the Hulk. Like the Hulk talks to this woman and she taps him. He's like, he stepped out of his body. It's like you're literally just, your body's just. By the time you realize where you are, you're like over someone with a.
Well, I remember we were on holiday in Mexico. There was Dominic. Sarah wasn't there. It was my. Can I tell the story?
Go on. I didn't get
it.
So there was.
Don't convict me now.
Your dad and myself, Danny, Ashley. We went out for dinner, nice restaurant.
Ruth Chris.
And
Ruth Chris.
Really nice restaurant. Your dad had been looking forward to his steak. So we sat down.
Wasn't my fault.
And there was, I think it was a woman and two guys.
Two guys, two women. It was like a couple, older couple.
Yeah, so they were at another table, but they'd already been drinking, so their volume was a little bit high. And then the swearing started. So
it was just like us two in the restaurant.
Yeah.
It was actually a quiet restaurant. So
it was it was just a quiet restaurant. It wasn't.
It feels like packed.
I think there was a couple other people somewhere.
It's like maybe 3 or 4 tables.
Yeah, 3 or 4 tables. And so Danny says to them, do you mind? I've got a child with me and he's not used to hearing swearing. So I think the guy said, I can't remember if he ignored her, but he carried on.
He told her, he swore at her and told her.
You never told her.
No, I think that was the second time. So I think he just like probably looked at her and thought whatever, and he carried on. So Danny says again, excuse me, can you stop swearing? My child is not used to hearing these words and I'd rather he didn't. And so the guy called her a name.
He said either shut the F up or just shut up. I can't remember.
Yeah. I think he said he called her an F-in bitch.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
I saw... We're sitting there having this, what was a nice family dinner. I saw Dominic's chair fly across the room where he'd stood up so fast. I saw Dominic pick up the knife from his dinner setting. And I mean, I didn't even see it. It was all like a blur. When I looked up, Dominic's like over the guy with his knife. And I'm going, Doug, quick. Because I'm like, I don't want my son ending up in a prison in Mexico.
I'd have been straight to the airport.
I'm like, I don't want my son ending up in a prison in Mexico. So your dad flew over there to try and disarm the whole situation. And I was like, Danny... You know, because he was defending Danny's honour. I'm like, Danny, really?
He was quiet after that, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, they were real quiet, but the waiters, everyone was just like...
I know, everyone was in shock.
Yes, sir, what would you like? What else would you like?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, let's bring Dominic back.
So it was triggered me.
For your counselling session for today, Dominic, what made you stop putting the knife into
What were you going to
do? What was your thought?
It depends what his next words were.
Oh.
Well, he just threw his hand or something when he was on the table. Or something
you know what?
Gone through his hand.
Don't
do that at
her. Like cut his throat unless he said something.
Oh wow. Okay.
Either way, where I was then. Yeah. Well, it's Dominic. Oh, no, it's like trying to summon me back to reality.
No, but I think that's what it is.
But that's the consequence. Like, yes, if I was more unstable in my head, that could have been from both of us.
Yeah, it could have
been
bad.
your reckless words you're saying.
Yeah.
Not knowing who you're speaking to, where they come from, what the issue is.
Well, that's the thing. You don't know the mental state of somebody.
Someone could have, their live wife could have left them that day and you've triggered them. And that's tipped over the edge or something, you know.
And I think that's why we just can't, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, a saying that I go by is count the cost. You know, what is the cost of this reaction? What is the cost of being right now? Because that's really what it is. We're fighting for the right to be right.
And I think I know it's a big thing, you know, but to be mindful of what somebody, and you're not always in that frames of mind zone. But I remember that time we were in Portugal with a group of other girls, and I went to check everyone in, and the lady at the check-in was really rude to me, and my immediate was like react to her. But then I took a moment to step back and survey, and I got a whiff of alcohol, and I'm thinking, well, if you're smelling this strong of alcohol, and it was an early morning flight, so I'm thinking, if you're drinking like that, I don't know what's going on in your life. And I thought, well, let me not respond how normally you would have done, be rude back. And so I spoke to her nicely, and it disarmed it. It had the reverse effect where she could have made our whole process difficult, a headache. But because I didn't react to what normally people probably would have done, someone being rude to you for no reason, but it's just sometimes just taking that moment
to not match their energy.
Don't give the energy, because we are in a place today where mental health is really on a rise from any age group. I remember one day being in Costco and watching this Asian lady, it's a Chinese lady. She had a toddler, must have been about between 2 and 3 years old. Child was screaming down the whole store. Everybody's like looking at her at this stage. She had no control whatsoever over this little person, and all she was trying to do was restrain, hold this child. Had no control. I'd done all my shopping around the whole store. Got to the till, this child is still kicking off, screaming like someone's murdering them. You lot would have got told if you want something to cry.
You said I speak once and after that I don't speak again. Yeah, there's no telling. That would have been...
Don't lie now.
You never told us nothing.
It's too late. You're not going to go to jail.
You never told us nothing. We're grown now. They can't take us away from
First you would have got the...
You'd have got a look.
No, but there's certain things you don't. It doesn't even. No, but it doesn't even go into your
straight to the toilet.
It doesn't even go into your psyche to be displaying that kind of.
But
behavior.
it was so bad that this child screamed. We went through the whole store, done our shopping, checked out, still going, still got energy, still going. Unpacking in the car. They were parked on the opposite side. She's sitting in the car trying to restrain this child.
But can I just say something to that? Because there's this whole wave of people that it's just all about the child, and it's all about... Can I just say it's really unfair on the child, because if everyone is honest, the parent does not enjoy that child.
No.
And that child is not enjoying themselves.
No.
And I think we just really, no one talks about this.
Yeah.
And I think that the reality is that it's actually a moment of discipline.
It's unpleasant for everybody.
No, but what I'm saying is, even, okay, this is all about, in this generation, it's all supposed to be about the child, right? We seem to think that discipline is the harmful thing to the child. I think it is way more harmful to have a child that everywhere they go, they know that they are not liked.
Yeah.
They are not they're tolerated, they're not enjoyed. And I think that it must be awful where as a mother, if you're really, really honest, you don't enjoy your children. And
we
then
had one girl tell us that. Do you remember when we did a home visit?
I see lots
she
of
said,
them.
I actually resent my child.
Yeah, because it's not nice, it's not pleasant. And I think you're doing your child a huge disservice by not actually correcting wrong behavior. Because when I go out with my kids, I actually enjoy their company. We don't spend the day, get down off the table, what are you doing? Why is that enjoyable for anybody? I go out with them, it's not stressful at all. I say, Ezra, hold your sister's hand. It's just all very pleasant, very nice. We go to the cinema, they sit down. We watch a movie, we talk about it afterwards. What did you enjoy? What was your favorite part? I actually get to enjoy my children. And I think that the misconception is that children that are disciplined, they live under this tyranny of this barricade of beatings and slaps and shouting and screaming. I can name on one hand the amount of times that I've had to actually smack my children or, use any level of force with my voice or whatever, because you train them when they're young.
That's
and as they get older, that's when you can just do the look. That's
because
when
they
you
know
can just,
the
they know the
consequences.
consequences.
That's what we were taught. That was what I was taught growing up. My mum would drill it into us. You train them when they're young. You train them at home so that when you grow out, when they grow older, when you're out in public, they behave. And that was what she downloaded that to me. I implemented that same technique and it worked for me. Where I remember one time we were on a flight from America, we were coming back, and I remember these women, all these people behind, they said to me, we wouldn't have even known that there were children in this cabin because your kids are so well behaved. And I've had people come up to me time and time again when we were out with you guys and say, do you remember there was one time we were in on holiday and that Robert Schuler came over to our table and he said, I've been watching your family this whole week, and I just wanted to come over and say your family's amazing.
But what I'm saying is exactly because when you get rid of all the nonsense behavior,
you can enjoy
sit
them.
and have a conversation. You can enjoy each other. If you spend your entire time constantly screaming and shouting, no, come back, they're going to go off a cliff, they're going to go like it's ridiculous. And I think that we have to, as parents, start taking responsibility. It's not fair on teachers, it's not fair on society, it's not fair on the shopkeeper, it's not fair on the nursery workers, it's not fair that everyone else have to live with our laziness. That's really what it is. We're lazy to parent our children, and my children are not going to be a burden to society, and they're definitely not going to be the reason
that was one of
why
the
someone
thoughts
doesn't
I
want to
had.
go to
I
work
wanted
that day.
to make sure my kids were an asset in society and not a burden to society. What kind of adult are they going to be that other people are going to have to tolerate when other people meet them? What's that experience going to be? If you interviewed most teachers today, they would tell you how awful some kids are.
100%.
You've got some kids
and you look at them now when they're growing up that they taught. The ones that are usually the ones that are like terrible.
But also I think that parents are the reason as well. Like a teacher will come to talk to the parent about their child, and the parents going on and carrying
with
on
an attitude,
and acting like attitudey in front of the child. And then so you've just taught that child, you've been naughty the whole day, the teacher's come and spoken to you, and then you're acting worse than the child,
and the child's watching you.
I think some people parent in the moment and some people parent for the future.
That's
so some people parent because I want you to be like this when you're older. I want you to be able to do this. I can see how I want you to be when you're older. When you plant a seed, you know what tree you've planted. You know what you want the tree to. Don't plant a lemon tree waiting for grapes. You have intention behind your seed that you're sowing.
And you create the right
exactly. I'm not planting a tree and one day I'll see what happens here. I don't know.
But even if you plant the tree, you take care of the tree, you prune it. You make sure that tree is going to produce. So you train the tree. You see some trees, some people train the tree.
They start bending in the wrong way.
Because like where we were today, there was these lollipop trees. So the tree was pruned into like lollipops.
Shaped,
or you see some trees that are pruned into like boxes. So you train something how you want it to turn out for the future. It may not look like that at the beginning when it starts out, if you wispy, wild, little stray looking branches, but as it matures, it becomes compact and it takes on the shape of whatever. And it is the same thing with our children.
I think a lot of people just parenting blindly.
But you've got to be
and there's
intentional.
no intention behind it. It's just I'm a parent now. I've got a child. I'll tell you whatever today and then next day. It's like there's no looking forward to what that child would be. And if they do that, they might actually be frightened of what that you've actually molded. That canvas, that blank canvas you had. What have you painted in that picture?
But one of the best sermons or sessions I ever heard on parenting was by this guy called Chaz Gulo. He's got 4 kids of his own, and he said, I've never parented my children, very similar to what you just said. I've never parented my children for who they are now. I've always parented them for the adults they will be. And I think that that's so important, like what Dominic was just saying. So many people don't look beyond this moment because you're looking at that 3-year-old, you're looking at that 2-year-old, but that there's so many adults walking around today that not much has changed other than their stature and their build. And I think that we all think that they will just grow out of it. And I think that the society is as dysfunctional as it is today because you don't grow out of it.
Yeah.
Some people get older, but they don't get much more mature.
No.
They don't.
You see them throw
mentally
the
the same age.
You see some old men, and they're still acting like they're boys.
Still out here. Even I can't even share his name, but there's a footballer and his brother's like older, and he's like still out in like Ibiza and all them things. It's like you're 68. Yeah. I'll give you a clue. His brother does like the Walkers adverts and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so his brother is like in his 60s. Even a video the other day on social media, he got knocked out by some young guy out in like, go home.
Yeah, go
Where's your
home.
grandkids?
Leave
Like,
your grandkids.
but it's like some people just like wandering around, no purpose. It's like.
It's not dealing with that part, isn't it? It's the.
But then I guess you've got parents that haven't grown out.
Yes,
either
trauma.
So
trauma
it's like
breeds
it's
trauma
almost like children having children because yes, you've grown in stature, but if you're still you're still clubbing, like you say, at 50, 60 years old, and your kids are clubbing, it's like you know you're leaving them to go. It has to be that intentionality, and I think that's when we'll see society change, when parents are more intentional.
But I think the reality is there also has to be an acceptance of where society is. So knowing where society is now, we need to equip ourselves with that knowledge. So for example, you know where society is. You know that they have very little regard for life. You know that they will take your life at the drop of a hat. I think I saw a guy got chased out of a store for £150,000 watch and killed on the street. So we know where society is. So where does that leave us now? The ones that, yes, it's one thing I'm seeing more and more reoccurring in the news. Are you
talking the story with the guy that went to the... He didn't even get chased out of his shop. But, he was just walking to his car and got chased down because for his watch.
Which was in Mayfair.
Which was fake in Mayfair.
And his watch
was fake.
But what we're seeing more and more happening in the news is innocent bystanders being caught in kind of the crossfire of this lack of regard for life. And so I think that there has to be an awareness or an awakening on our part that we just can't respond to anger. We just can't. Like nothing's worth it. You know, at the end of the day, people are carrying knives nowadays. They will the anger switch just goes off at the drop of a hat. And so I think that, you know, like for me, little small steps. I've got a ring alarm. Do you get what I mean? I don't need to open my door to everybody. Why? Because I've had to take into account the society that I'm living in. My children don't walk the streets. They've begged me to let them get on school bus. What school bus? You're not getting on no school bus. I'm driving you to the door and I'm driving you home. So I'll say, oh, they need their independence, they need their freedom. No, they don't. Because for me, my children's not going to be, it's not. And my heart goes out to every single one of those innocent people that have got caught in that, because the reality is we're now it's seeping out of the homes, it's seeping out of the communities, it's now seeping out into people that little boys on their way to school at 7:30 in the morning, a girl trying to step in and help her friend on her way to, all of these kids on their way to private schools, you know, your throat's being cut. All of these things are horrendous.
Are you talking that incident in Croydon? Was it last year?
Yeah, and it's just,
you know, it's ridiculous. But then that's another part again, you know, when because we kind of talked on the anger side of emotions, but there is that rejection side, you know, where some people can't handle rejection and then they go for vengeance, you know, because, okay, you rejected me. You don't expect somebody to come back for you, you know, because, and I think that seems to be the story with this guy last week that killed those 3 women. I think one of them was the girlfriend. He's an ex-boyfriend. So somewhere in there's rejection.
No, but also there's red flags, and if you haven't watched the episode on red flags, you need to watch it. It's on the YouTube channel. But also, I guarantee you, before that guy came back, for
there was
her.
behavior.
There was behavior that indicated to her. She may not have known that he would ever do anything to that extremity, but there is always a red flag that lets you know this
Usually there's quite a few. There's one documentary.
And you ignore them because of the...
Well, people never
bubble.
think it's going to go there. You know, people I don't think, or
there's
do know,
always
but
something.
some
There's
do,
always,
and they just think...
Even that little Pinocchio thing, let your conscience be your guide.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you get that feeling inside when something like...
You know,
it's a natural thing. Your body
some people
tells you.
will even say, oh, they're going to kill me one day. Yeah. There was one girl, she was a hairdresser. It was a documentary program we watched some time ago. And the boyfriend, he was controlling, he was possessive, insecure, all kinds of stuff. And it was just getting worse and worse. So it was so bad, she had to end the relationship, and he began stalking her, but she was getting he was constantly showing up and doing things. So she had all those warnings, and he actually came into the shop, the salon she was working in, and killed her in the shop. And because she ended the relationship with him. And there's so many stories like that. There was that one years ago at Harvey Nicks. Do you remember the girl, the boyfriend that she had? They broke up. He came into Harvey Nicks in the broad daylight and shot her in the store.
But I think that even in
was rejection.
But even in those instances, this is what I'm saying. I remember when I was working at Mac, and we were in Selfridges, and you'd have a lot of guys stop by the counter because there was so many makeup artists, and they were girls and very attractive and everything. And there would be times where the girls would say to the security, I don't feel safe. And they appointed security to stand by our counter so that if there was anything going off, or they were constantly watching. I think they had 2 or 3 security guards by the counter. So I think that we also, this is what I'm saying, that I'm not saying everything's avoidable, but, speak to someone, tell somebody, when you're driving, for example, if you know that someone has become enraged, call someone. I remember one time I was driving on the M1, and this guy, I joined, and I don't know if he felt I cut him off or whatever. He began to follow myself and Danny at high speeds down the M1, and then he would literally swerve in front of us and just slam on his brakes. And then when we try and go round him, he'd do it again.
Yeah, I remember you lot were teenagers.
Yeah, and this was going on and on and on. And I was I knew in that moment, this is someone that's completely unhinged. He's lost all sense of logic, and someone's life is going to end today. It's only a matter of time. And I called the police. I told them I'm a young girl by myself. I feel incredibly scared. This is what this guy's doing. They told me to stay on the phone. They told me to tell them the registration number of the guy. The police just literally, within a few minutes, appeared from nowhere, literally put themselves in between myself and this guy, told him to come over. They said, keep driving, ma'am. They pulled him over. Whatever happened to him happened to him. But what I'm saying is let's stop this thing of trying to be a hero or trying to manage things for ourselves. Things like, if you know that someone's following you, don't go home.
But there's incidents, because there was a time when I was working in Eastcheap in London, and so I used to have to take the train, the underground. So I used to take the bus up to Brixton and then get the underground. And I remember this guy one time, he started talking to me on the train, and he started trying to chat me up. So I said, I'm actually married. He said, that doesn't matter. So I was like, whatever. And I ignored him. And I found from that day, every day he would wait for me to arrive on the platform, and he would talk to me even though I would ignore him. And I remember one day I said to him, I'm actually totally not interested in you. I'm married. Because he would actually get off where I got off at the train station and follow me to my workplace. Wow. And then when I rejected him, full on, he switched on me, told me he's going to beat me up. He's going to kill me, and telling me all these things he's going to do to me. So by the time I got to work...
Was I live yet?
No. I was shaking. I was so... I don't even know to this day. He didn't know mine. I didn't know his. It was just... I rejected...
See, this day and age, you start doing that. I'll start putting the phone in your face.
Yeah.
Like,
well, back
that's
then
it's funny.
there
It's funny.
wasn't. But this was
It's
before
come like a
I
weapon
didn't
now.
even have a
Sometimes
phone.
you can actually use this as a weapon.
So I get to
when
work
you're
and I'm
threatened.
shaking and I'm so traumatized now because he said he's going to wait for me
Yeah, of course.
after work.
You start overthinking the whole time you're at work.
Yeah, so I get in and my boss says to me, "What's wrong?" And I told him what happened, and he said, "Tomorrow when he follows you, I'm going to be waiting outside. Just point him out, and I'll deal. You just go in, and I'll go deal with him." And so he did. He followed me. He didn't work where I work. Followed me to work, just intimidating me. And so I got there. My boss was waiting. He was like a dad, and I said, "That's him." I ran in. I never saw him again because a man dealt with him.
They don't deal with men.
Yeah. No, they don't.
Those
deal
are
with
the
men.
cowards. Those are the ones that's just
So he just. I never saw him again at Brixton. He never, whatever it was, he made sure he didn't get the same train. But I was so shaken up because this man that I never gave any kind of
signs
lead.
or nothing.
No, from the beginning, I shut him down. Didn't ask his name. Didn't give him mine. Knew nothing about him. But he took it upon himself. And when I rejected him and said no with a firm no, leave me alone. He switches.
The funny thing is, though, if people read that on the news, they'd be like, "What did she do to get him to?"
Absolutely nothing.
She must have done something to make him feel like he could. You know what I mean? The way people rationalize things in their head, it's like some people are actually just mad.
You don't have to actually do nothing.
You don't.
There was that time, when I was younger, I remember walking down the road and hearing these guys on a building site, wolf whistling. And I was always raised, you don't look at them, you don't pay them any attention. So I held my head straight, kept walking. Then the verbal abuse started. Who do you think you are? And then I kept going. And I'm getting because there's nobody else on the street. It's just me walking. So not even anywhere. Where could I go if this escalates? And then I hear this guy coming down the scaffolding and his friends. So I'm listening to this commotion.
In your peripheral, like in your back of your behind.
And I got to work and I was so traumatized because to this day I couldn't even tell you what that guy looked like, who he was. But because his pride got dented in front of his mates, his emotions now, he wants to come down and beat me up because I didn't respond.
Don't you think that then goes back again to the way that we're raising our sons? Because I think that there's so much emphasis put on women safeguarding themselves or protecting themselves. Don't run here, don't run there, whatever. Don't go out past a certain time. Don't run with headphones on, which all of those things are very valid and we should all adhere to. But I think that there also needs to be an onus on every parent that is raising a son.
Exactly.
That you're not going to be that guy. And like with Ezra, I'm even very conscious of the way he treats his sisters. Like Ezra, you don't do that. Obviously he's 5, so he's gonna do whatever, but it's that constant reminding him. And even the other day we were in a restaurant or we were somewhere and there was some people that were gonna go and I said, Ezra, you're a gentleman, you let those people go first. It's ladies, you let them go first. And he goes, do I? And I said, yes, you do. And he goes, okay. But he's okay now. But, when he's 12
older,
or when he's 13.
It's that raising them for who they're going to become.
It's raising him for who he's going to become. So now for Ezra to go from that to I'm going to now go to want to beat a girl up because she said no.
Or because she ignored you.
Exactly, but that's not going to happen. But that doesn't, I think that what Dominic was saying earlier is it doesn't start when they're 16. It doesn't start when they're 17. It starts with your intentionality from the beginning. And I think that I just want to emphasize that again, who are we raising? And even if you are a grandparent and you're watching, I've seen the impact that yourself and dad have on their grandchildren. So it doesn't have to just be, and even with my nephews, and my one niece, I have an impact. Dominic has an impact, Danny has an impact. All the kids are with Danny right now, having the time of their life. There's so many influences that we can utilize and where you can be that person. So even if mum isn't stepping in the way that she should, that doesn't mean that we all just turn a blind eye and go, okay, well, they're going to be rat bags when they're older. like, I think it's
haven't
just
heard that word in a long time.
Yeah,
it's an old word, rat bag.
It's about like obviously being those people, you know, like like I use this word yesterday with Marlon. He's like, I've never heard this word before. I used the word crux. He's like, he like Googled it. He's like, is that a word? I was like, yeah, it's like the essence of something. And the crux of something, the crux of this whole thing is it. Who are we raising, and how are we training them?
What are we raising?
What are we raising?
Yeah.
I think I think there's a lot of power in like a household with both parents.
Yeah.
Like even us having both parents, if I'm not there, when I get back, when I get home, what was said, they take it a lot more serious when I deal with them.
Yeah.
Or even there's times they're not listening to Deesh as much as they would if I'm present. Yeah. And she said, Dom, can you deal with them? And the reaction is very different. So I think there's the power of a father figure in discipline and in raising children, I think, as well as a mother. I'm not taking anything away from a mother, but I think having that father, especially from raising
that's
a
where
man.
It must come from back in the old days. Wait till your father gets home.
Of course. And
we always got told
I still hear that saying. I don't like them saying that because it makes you sound like some... You know, like the villains coming.
We all grew up with that.
Make me scared of a scary figure, but it's like at the same time they need that, not fear, but they need to.
Well, there is that element of fear that they need to have, because that fear is what stops you pushing the boundaries, you know, and you know it's there is not all fear is negative. There is that healthy fear, because it's a fear of crossing that line, because how does that play out in society, crossing that line, whether it's in school, breaking the rules, whether it's in breaking the law, and having that healthy fear of authority, of people in positions of authority, the police, etc., and the consequences. So that's not a negative, because you remove that. I remember the day because when I grew up in school, there was caning, there was you got punished when you misbehaved. People, the headmaster, you get sent down to the headmaster's office. Most times it was the boys who would go down and get caned. And I remember I remember the specific time. I can't remember what year it was, but I remember that day when the government said, we're removing caning. You're not allowed to cane kids. And we were in a girls' school. We had a boys' school next door. And one of the boys there, the headmaster went to cane him. He took the cane from the headmaster, shoved the headmaster away, broke the cane on his leg, and threw the cane at the headmaster. And immediately that fear boundary was removed. He became a different person. When that was still in force, that governed, that kept that restraint. Sorry?
You know, when Caesar grabs his stick, he says, no!
but that's what happened. And then after that, kids just got wild. Because up until then, we all knew
that fear, like
we all had that.
You treated it like home.
Yeah, but we all had that. Okay, you're away from your parents. You know, you follow your friend, and you get a little bit too excited with yourself, and you want to break the rules and just be that naughty child in school. But there was always that element. No one ever wanted to get sent down to the headmaster's office. Number one, it was embarrassing. Number two, when you came back, everyone knew that you got beat, and especially the boys, they'd all come back trying to look like their eyes are dry because they didn't want to admit that it hurt.
I wonder how many sadistic headmasters there were though back then.
Of course.
I don't remember any of them being sadistic. I remember some of them.
I'm sure there were.
Well, I never got caned, so I don't.
Look how many exposed now. I'm sure there was a lot of.
Imagine what went on.
Yeah, even the other day, right? So Luca, we trusted him to, like, you know, wash his own body, you know, cream himself, dress himself, that independence. So Deesh goes upstairs, and this boy's use about half the tub of the epiderm, covered in cream, from head to toe. She said, I'm letting your father deal with you. He's like, no. I come upstairs, this boy is literally emptied the tub on himself. Like, what are you doing? I don't know what I'm doing. But it's that fear of, it's like he snapped out of whatever nonsense he was in. You're looking in the mirror, creaming your whole body. He's white. He was white. Like, all I can see is eyes and teeth. Literally, he was just white. I was like, what are you doing? Literally looking in the mirror, creaming up your whole body. It's like,
You probably thought it looked cool. You were little ones.
Yeah, but he snapped out of that real quick.
yes, exactly. So when daddy comes home, you realise like someone took over your body and creamed you, and you don't know what happened. It's like, you know what you did, you know. So, but it's even just that element of, you know, that fear of that it's a good fear. I
That's
think
what I'm saying.
it gives you that intuition of, is this a good idea beforehand?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
you know what
Because
happens if I do
even
this?
growing up, there are certain things you never even asked your parents.
No, what you might get licked for the question.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. you get
that.
beat for just asking. The fact that you actually thought to ask it was a
Innit?
reason to get beat. Like there were
Innit?
certain things
Or
like
you
your
get
friends would all be like, "Oh, are you coming tonight?" And it'd be like, "Yeah."
You're trying to think of every way you can to get
You
out.
already know.
You're not even
before
gonna ask.
You're even asking half-hearted.
Me, and
My friends are going
all
out.
the black friends would look at each other like, "Ooh, yeah."
Yeah, right. What time's the party start? 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd all be like, "Oh yeah, see you later."
Yeah, I'll see you at school tomorrow.
Bed. Like,
See you at school tomorrow.
Yeah, see you at school tomorrow. Like,
Mate, there's different rules in it, but
Certain things you don't even.
But
bother
it's just,
to ask.
I think it's parenting. Parent your
Yeah,
kids.
I
I remember one time Dominic came. Do you remember this?
did you get
He
your dog
got
to
invited to a party that was meant to have a sleepover, teenagers sleeping over. So I said, well, you're not going unless I can speak to the parent of whoever's hosting it. So I called, he got me the number, I called the parent, and I'm like, so tell me about this party. Oh, and she's like, oh, all us parents are just going to leave the house. We're going to leave them to it. I'm like, what? You're going to leave a bunch of like 15, 16-year-old testosterone boys with your daughters and all the girls and no adults present. She's like, yeah, they're going to just have fun. I'm like, Dominic, I'll drop you and I'll come back and pick you up in a couple of hours, right? You're not sleeping over. And he was so upset, but I said, that's the terms. If you want to go, you can go for a couple of hours, but I'm coming. You're not staying over. You know, but it's just parenting.
Yeah, but I think also like we parent through what we also model in front of them. Like I remember when we were at the beach and I was watching Kayla playing, and she was kind of playing by this like pool of water on the beach, and she was like building like sand castles and things like that. So there's a little girl that starts playing with her as well, but she's one of those like naughty little girls, and I'm watching her, and then I watch her literally throw and kick sand all in Kayla's eyes on purpose.
Wow.
To the point where Kayla starts screaming because obviously she had her eyes open, so it's all just gone. And she done it on purpose. She was very malicious with it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, Sarah, like...
No, see me, I'll discipline your child for
listen,
you.
So
if you cannot do it...
No, listen, self-control. I was like, I'm not going to...
Anger management, is that what
I was
no, you know what,
this isn't my child. Wait, let me finish this.
Okay, come.
I was like, this isn't my child. So all I said to her, I said, that's very naughty. We don't do that. So I bring Kayla over. I'm like trying to get water, trying to wash out her eyes, whatever. Next thing, I'm pregnant with Ezra at this point. The next thing, this woman comes flying up the dunes, screaming in my face, you know, how dare you talk to my daughter? Dare. Screaming over me.
Talk to my daughter?
Yeah. So I said, excuse me. I said, it was actually your daughter. And explain the situation. The woman was effing and blinding.
Wow.
So now I'm like, right. So now my children are watching me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up with my pregnant self.
That's who you should approach first, though.
And then I said, it is now very understandable why your daughter is the way she is. I said, now I'm going to show you who I am. And Jason's like, Sarah, because I'm pregnant.
It's just
I said, if you don't get out of my face with your arrogant self, I said, I'm going to slap you all the way back to your daughter. Do you understand me? And I'm there with my pregnant belly because I was like, excuse me, you're also not going to now model to my children that it's okay for you
and
to bully
I'm going to show them
I'm going to
take it.
Take it.
Yeah.
And Jason's like, Sarah. I said, no, And I literally ran the woman because I was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, I should have
But
disciplined
where were
your
you?
child.
But where were you?
Where did you emerge from?
Yeah, but
And-
where were you that your child was alone
also,
on the
you're
beach?
an adult. And I
Anyone could
tried
have
to
took your
speak-
child.
Yeah, and also you just couldn't be bothered. She was there sunbathing down the beach. Your daughter's come and told a story, which is clearly not true.
Yeah.
Instead of being an adult and coming to me and speaking to an adult, and even in her rage, I still try to address her as an adult. Then when you start swearing at me in front of my children and cussing me in front of my children, that's when I had to show them, right, okay. And then I turned to them and I said, so what Mummy was trying to show you,
Didn't go as planned, but
what Mummy was trying to show you is you don't start it, but you do
You
finish
always
it.
finish
You
it.
know, and
Always.
I said, Mummy wouldn't have reacted unless if the woman had just listened.
that's
you know?
like there's like a story I literally heard like 2 days ago. There's a UFC fighter, right? He's on a podcast telling a story. His son is like 4 years old, and he's at the park, and this little girl was like kept pushing him over. So he pushed the girl over.
The dad.
Yeah,
did.
and then the child went to do it again. Right, he's a big like UFC fighter.
Oh, wow.
So then she does it again. So he goes to her dad and says, "If your daughter pushing my child again, I'm gonna beat you up." Like, so that's how I face life now. So if anyone chose my child,
I'm gonna go to the parents.
you will see your father get beat up because of your actions. So the father will now raise your
Somehow
child.
this podcast is going loud.
I'm just saying.
It's about anger management.
It's a
That was the mother's point of view. It's the father's point of view. How you nip it in the bud? Listen.
No, but I actually back that.
Okay.
because there was,
It might not go down to that. Obviously,
no,
that, but
it must because no,
they need to realise what their children are doing.
What
Yeah.
I said to I think you give the parent an opportunity to parent.
Yeah.
So there was one time where Maya, when she was much younger, she was in what's that place with the big soft play?
Tumble.
You know, it's like huge. I think they closed it down now probably because it was so dangerous. Anyways, it's the one that was used to be in Watford.
It used to be by the shopping centre. It was across on its own.
No, the one next to the cinema. You know, the big one.
Yes, it's like all spongy and
Jim Barger.
Oh
or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So
Jimbery or
anyway,
something.
I'm there and I'm there with some other mums, and you know you can just hear your child. There's like 1,000 kids there, but
You know
it's
your
like
child's tone.
you're just your
Tuned
ear.
in.
So I can hear Maya's cry, and you know when they go in there, it's like they just disappear.
Yeah, it's like a maze.
So I'm literally following this sound with these thousands of children, and I'm literally like following it, and I follow it all the way around to the other side, and there's this probably 8-year-old boy, she was about 2 or 3 at the time, just literally got her in the corner, pounding her in the stomach.
What?
It was in
my
that I
days.
forgot for a minute.
That child would have died in that minute.
In that minute, I did forget. I'm going to admit it. I forgot for a moment that he was a child.
Oh wow!
I grabbed him, and then it was the fear on his face.
He knows better at that age.
So
I
then,
don't care.
I was like, I caught myself because it was the absolute sheer fear that he had on his face that made me realise, okay, this is a child, Sarah. I said, show me your mum. And I dragged him literally.
I lift him up off there. Whose is this?
I literally threw him
Whose
at
is
his
this?
mother. I literally threw him at his mother. He literally landed on her. And I said, your son comes near, if he leaves this space, and he said, if he comes near my child again, I said, I'm telling you now, I'm going to beat him in front of you. Do you understand me? And I watched her holding this boy.
Hold him.
For the
Hold him
rest,
close
where he's
and dear.
trying to now go back to play. She's like, no.
Go home.
No.
Party
And
done.
then they just ended up packing up their
But that
stuff and
happened to
going.
you. Do you remember when you were small? Do you remember what your dad?
Yeah, I remember.
I won't tell
No,
too much of the story, but that was
I think
similar
that's
thing
no, but
where
I think that's
this
a
boy
great
punched you so hard in your stomach it left this big bruise.
Yeah.
Your dad, I'm sorry, but he was slid up the wall.
Yeah. But then for me, I think that's in that situation, I'm not taking the matter into my own hands. I'm giving the onus back to you, and I'm giving you an opportunity to.
But the mother was there. She was there, and she knew her child. She couldn't control her child.
Yeah.
And he had an anger issue, and he used to hit you all the time. But that one time, you were literally crumbled up on the floor where he winded you.
Oh, so you knew the parents.
Yeah, she was there. She was in. It was just in our house.
Oh, is it? Did
It was in our home.
Did she have a daughter too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep, that one.
That one.
Oh, dear. Yeah. See, like all that. No,
I think
when
the
it comes
only
to my
way,
kids, boy,
to be
I'm
honest,
sorry, I don't play.
the only thing, and that's why I think I don't let my children go into certain places, because that's the one area that I can't guarantee.
And
that
these
I
are the
will-
reasons why we would
Yeah,
never
that's
let you
why I
guys
think this
sleep
is
over.
what-
It has to be like a kids' party where I can see you.
You can see
I'll literally
them.
just
But
stand
that's
there
what
and
I'm
watch
saying,
what
But
you're
can
doing.
you
Or
imagine
get
if
in
your
there with
child
you.
was in a sleepover or
Yeah.
someone else's house
And
and
you're not
things were
there.
being done to them? You're not even privy.
Yeah.
No, we could just never
Who was
handle
it that was
that.
telling me that they're petitioning? I think it was Mumple in South Africa. They're petitioning. It was Mumple that's telling me that they're currently petitioning for the release of this dad, who it was his best friend, and his daughter slept over at the house with. I think their daughters were like best friends as well. So the parents are best friends, and he basically molested the girl, and the dad literally came and killed him.
Oh wow.
And so he's obviously been sentenced to life. But there's a whole petition at the moment to get him out. Now, I don't know how you feel about that in those situations. I don't know if you've watched that movie. Is it Samuel? It's not Samuel Jackson.
You know, you can get like these tubs.
You know where
it was
a license to kill. Is it a license to kill?
No. It was the one where oh gosh,
the little girl. She's on her way home.
What's that actor? Oh gosh, he plays a lawyer quite a lot. Matthew McNaughty. And I think it was Samuel Jackson where the child was on her way home. Are you talking the one where this a van load of guys, a couple of guys, I think it was a couple of guys. They raped her and they
weed on her and stuff.
Weed on her. They used full beer cans. They stoned her with full beer cans.
Did she die?
No,
she survived,
but the dad.
She had like, I mean, she was totally, and they dumped her in. They chucked her over a bridge into the river for her to die, and she survived.
And she got home.
Someone found her, and then so Matthew McNaughty. So what he did was, because it was one of those parts in America, the South, where he knew he wasn't going to get justice, so. They were going to the court. I think it was for a hearing, the initial part of a hearing at the beginning. So he hid inside the court overnight.
No, but they found them not guilty, didn't they?
I don't know if they'd been tried yet.
They got them.
So he hid, and so when they came out, he had a shotgun. And he just blew them both away. So Matthew McNaughty was defending him.
But they caused so much damage that she literally would never be able to have children.
She'd never be able to have children because they
I'll just get one of them tubs that you can get. And you can just, it's like the liquid, you can it dissolves the body and the bones and stuff.
We're talking about managing your emotions.
Maybe this episode's for me. This episode is for me.
But I think
But there's something about someone like, what do you do with that? Someone's done that to your child. There's no sane way of dealing with that.
Be there for that child.
Yeah.
But even if I am, what can I wasn't there in the first place.
Dominic, like me going and now murdering someone is not going to help my child. It's not going to help my child. Like,
maybe it's the reason God doesn't give me a daughter, because I'll probably be dead. I'll probably be in jail or something. I don't know.
But that's not
even look at my daughter across the street.
Child, is it?
Yeah.
It's not gonna. And I think that the reality is, it's never okay to take the law into your own hands, because it's still murder.
What's that film where like I think his daughter and her friend like get molested in the woods by these group of guys, and there's a woman there as well, and they end up going to there's like a house in the cabin or in the woods, and they let them in for the night, and they shoot the daughter try to swim away, and they shoot her, but she survives. And she gets back to the cabin where they've obviously taken in the people that done that to them. And she's like, it's them that done this to her.
Oh, wow.
And then he like goes on like a spree. And like,
I've never seen that.
I don't know that one.
Oh, I can't remember the film. I thought Sarah would have seen it. Sarah's seen all them type of.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? Jason thinks that it's very morbid. But I see it as,
awareness.
Like I was telling Danny that I watched this movie the other day, because what we're talking about, like equipping ourselves for the society we live in. It's a true story about this girl that's a nurse, and she gets taken by this guy, like literally on the street. She's on her way home from work. She gets taken by this guy on the street. I can't remember her name. It's a true story. This guy actually sees the whole thing happens. He tries to help her, but the guy's got a knife and he backs off, and he shoves her into the back of this car. But she's so smart with it. So this is why I watch things like this. So she drops her phone on purpose, and she drops her glasses. You see her take it off because she knows.
It where, in the car or outside?
Outside on the street, because she's like, by the time they have to figure out who's missing, that's going to take time.
Okay.
And she said her family would know she would never take off her glasses.
Okay.
So she drops it on the street on purpose so that whoever picks up her phone will know straight away who she is, and they can start looking for her. And then when she's in the car, she basically says to him, she sees like his petrol tank's going low or something, and she says, you know what, I've got money on me, I've got my cash card on me, you can use, you must be hungry, because she wants to create some kind of trail. So then he stops at the cash point, but obviously when he stops at the cash point's got a camera.
Oh, so
but then they also let them know her location.
Okay.
Because then she keeps doing things like that. So then she lets him stop at another petrol station. She gets petrol, whatever. But she's obviously helping the police, and she's found within, I think it's like 3 days or something like that. And she survived it. You know, the police get there just in time. But like things like that, like where I like to have all of that stuff in my memory retention. So things that I wouldn't have personally thought to drop my phone. The first thing that you think is to keep your phone. But she said she knew that the first thing he's probably going to make her do is hand over her phone.
Yeah.
So she was like, I'm going to drop it.
Well, most of us would have thought, hide your phone on you so you can...
But she didn't have time.
Yeah.
Because he's like grabbed her. So, and she was like kicking him. She grabbed this hammer that was in his car. She was like whacking him with it. She was a fighter. But yeah, like it just, so yeah, I watch stuff like that because I find it very educational. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess, you know, listening and the reaction that we're getting with the different stories is that everyone has a point. So we're not talking that every day, you know, where people lose it. Everyone can lose it. And I think that's innate in us.
There's always a choice though.
Yeah, it's always a choice. It's always a choice. You do have a moment, and I think that's what this is what I used to do, you know, when raising children. I'd never discipline or correct in an emotional state. If I'm upset because, you know, the kids have gone too far, it would always be calm me down, calm myself down so that I can deal with the situation in a correct way that was never going to abuse. And you see that with parents, and it starts with, like you say, you know, your children are watching you, like you shared the example with that, dealing with that woman on the beach, and your kids they mimic what they see, how they see you.
I think they also mimic how you respond to authority.
Yeah, that too.
And I think that's really important. Like, I remember one day picking up Maya, and her teacher came out. So you usually pick them up at the grass bit. And her teacher came out. She said, "Oh, Mrs. Baker, can I speak to you for a moment?" And I said, "Yep, sure." And I look at Maya like, "Why is your teacher speaking to me?" And she said, "Oh, you know, just to let you know that Maya became a little bit emotional today because I had to tell her off, because I think she got a bit excited with the kids in the class and was just messing around a bit, and, you know, I just wanted to let you know, because she did cry a little bit or whatever." I said, "You know, thank you." As I turned, I said to Maya, "This will be the one and only time a teacher comes out from where they are to tell me about you. Do you understand?" I said, "If I ever get told
Why
again,"
you got to emphasize that?
I said, "your punishment will be public. Do you understand?" I said, "Get in the car." The reason why I say that is because I had a choice of how to respond there. If I had been like, what do you mean you told her off?" that would have sent a message to Maya of how I view the authority that's being distributed to this teacher. Does that make sense? By me backing what the teacher said, the fact that the teachers had to come and speak to me is unacceptable. Don't let that happen again. And it never has happened again. And I think that it's very, very important that what we model in front of our children is going to be how they respect authority going through life. And if we're ramming teachers and we're being disrespectful ourselves or authority or whatever, even me when I work as a support worker in semi-independence and stuff, like it's always quite a surprise. The kids that do very well are the ones where the parents or the guardians or whoever are very supportive of the system, whereas the ones that are constantly fighting, it's a child that suffers. And so I think that it's really, really important that we're modeling the right thing to our children, because really it is your acknowledgement of authority that tends to keep you in check.
We knew that if a teacher got in touch with your parents, we knew you were going to be dead.
I used to get school reports where it's just they never made it to you. Like, just give it to me.
Now it's all emailed, so you don't have a
it's
choice.
different. There's a paper.
But if the teacher said we misbehaved and did anything, that would be the end of it. You knew that when you got home, you're not going to be able to sit down on a regular chair for the next week or two.
So, by the way, the film's called The Last House on the Left.
Okay, screenshot it, send
The Last House on the Left.
Telling you, Sarah's going to screw at TV.
I'm literally going to watch that tonight.
Sarah's going to
anyone that knows me, I'm the worst person to watch
Yeah,
movies
she's terrible. She's
I literally will leave
running,
the room,
yeah,
then I
she
come
runs
back
in
and
and
I'm
out
like,
the room.
Literally, that's Sarah's cup of tea.
and then I start Googling it while the movie's going on,
trying to find out what's about to happen.
I'm
watch the
really bad.
Just watch the film.
It's just a disclaimer.
You can't watch the film with Sarah. It's like, oh, Dom, what's going to happen next? I don't like it. It's like, just...
And then I'm like, got the pillow over my head. Then I'm like, but I want to see, but then I don't want to see.
Yeah, that film is intense. But anyway.
Okay.
Yes.
You have to text me the name.
I'll send the...
Are you okay now?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Good. It's when you talk about hypotheticals, right, with the kids, it's like, like...
hyperventilating.
It's just because you start pictures like, sorry, my kids? Never.
Yeah.
Like, the way people just...
Yeah, but I think that's why, and this is what I was saying earlier, that don't let it become something that you have to deal with. Get the ring alarm on your house, so you don't have to worry about someone, your wife opening the door and there's people in the house. Does that make sense? Like, don't get into altercations on the road, so that you don't have to worry about someone road rage and all of this stuff. Do you get what I mean? Don't respond to that person in the shop. Your space,
guard your space. And I think that was one of the reasons why your dad wanted you all to be driving as soon as you were of age, because it meant, because we used to have issues where you lot who you encountered on the bus or the trains, but once you had your own car, you're in a safe space. That was our thinking. Then you lock your doors, you're in a safe space, and then it's again, like you say, with the ring alarm. If you're not sure about somebody, whether you know them or not, if they've come to your door and they're angry, they're aggressive, or they're behaving, you're not going to let them in. Like maybe that was the situation. I'm not saying that that's the case, but maybe if those ladies didn't let that guy in, he couldn't have done what he did. I
think as well, like training your children to recognize danger. I remember when Daddy and I don't think we were driving yet, and we'd taken a taxi home, and we'd forgotten to bring cash with us. So we said to the taxi driver, "Oh, I'm gonna go get the money," and he said, "Your sister has to stay." I said, "I'm not leaving you alone with my sister." And he's like, and then he basically just became really irate. I think he thought we were going to run off or whatever. And I said, "I'll stay, but she's not staying." And so then he literally just became really irate. And as I was just about to step out the car, he started driving off with Danny. So like I pulled myself back into the car, and he's driving at high speed with me and Danny in the car. It was so mad. And
That's
so
a cab driver, you say?
Yeah.
And so we begin to punch him from the back because we're like, stop the car. Like, but again, these are things that Dad taught us where I just kept on punching him like, get. He dropped us. Mind you, there's no mobile phones, nothing. Till this day, I don't know how we managed to get home. Dropped us in the middle. I remember it was like Bletchley or something. And we were like living in Oldbrook. Dropped us in the middle, and I think it's just because he was like, get out of my car, because we literally wouldn't, like, we were kicking the doors, we were like, I was like, I'm gonna tell everybody about you, whatever. I memorized, I kept on saying his badge number over and over and over again. I was saying his name.
Didn't
I
you
was
have
like,
phones back then?
No, we didn't have phones.
Okay.
And then I think we found like back then there used to be all these phone boxes.
Yeah.
So we reversed the charges
BT
to
phone
Dad.
boxes,
We reversed the charges to Dad. This guy obviously ended up letting us out.
Because we always used to tell you a lot to, because you know those cabs would have the drivers would have their picture with their ID. We always used to tell you to screenshot that.
that was
say
that was before the phone.
There's no screenshots even when we first got the phones.
Yeah.
And so
it was
they
either
didn't have
text.
cameras, did they?
It was to text the driver's details. We always said that to do that as a precaution, to take their details, the registration of the car, and just text it to us just in case of anything.
So I don't really know what happened. I don't know if he lost his license or whatever. But the point is that we knew that we were with a very angry person, and we knew we had to get out of the car. And we done everything within our power to get. I think I ended up opening the door, and that's what made him stop. So we opened the door while it was moving. And I was like, Daddy, get ready to jump.
Get ready to jump.
And I was like, and she was like, no. And I was like, I'm not jumping without you. Like, you have to jump. And that's when he was like, you're not going to mash up my car. These two are crazy or whatever. And he was just like, get out. And I just grabbed Daddy. We just started running. Like, we just ran and we didn't stop till we saw a payphone. But the point I'm making is that it's so important that we have some kind of awareness as well. Like, just teach your kids to like be safe,
be
to
savvy.
think like you know, if you're being followed, like phone someone. Don't just sit there like, oh, you know, I feel unsafe. I think it's just recognizing and that was back in this is, you know, back in the day. It was a long time ago. And now when I think about it, I'm like, that was just mad that he got away with that.
But you wouldn't expect that, you know, you think, but then, you know, like now we don't really try not to use minicabs, you know, rather use a license.
But I remember even when I was
because back in the day as well, you could just hail a taxi. You didn't a cab.
They didn't have to
not
be.
the black cabs, but they're just a regular
minicabs.
But then some of those guys, we found out they were ex-convicts.
Yeah, and there was one that actually picked me up from college one day, and he literally, I'm not lying, stared at me all the way. In his mirror, and I remember you and Dad were in London, and he was obviously, I'd already given him my home address because that's where I'm going to. So I was like, hi Dad, and so Dad's like, hi, and I'm like, so I'm just down the road, so are you gonna come out and meet me? Okay, and I just made out like Dad was at home, just to make him think that there's a man alone. And Dad's speaking to me like, What's the registration? What's it? And I told him in front of the guy, I was like, okay, yep. So, can you show me your badge, please? And I was like, yeah. So Dad's writing it all down, and I'd already memorized the license plate because Dad always taught me to look at it before you get in the taxi. Yeah. So I told him in front of the guy the license plate. And I told him exactly how far we were, and he went to turn down a road. I said, no, can you just keep going the way that I know, please? Yeah. And he took me home, but I don't think his intention was to do that. And so I think it's just really, really important that we also teach our children about the world that we live in. Like, even going into certain areas, you were the biggest one guilty of that, like wearing expensive stuff in estates that you like have
told not to go to.
What was I wearing in the estates?
Your dad would always say, Dominic, don't go into that estate.
When you got stabbed?
I was wearing a silver chain that I bought in.
But you were in an estate
Prague
that your dad told you not to go to.
My friend lived in there.
And?
Your friend needs to find his own way home. That's what I'm doing. And I just think that you've got to train your kids, like, even nowadays, like, it's understanding that people will take their stuff from them or whatever. And also like teaching our kids not to be heroes. If they ask for your phone, give them your phone. If they ask you for your trainers, I'll buy you a new pair. Like having those conversations with our kids. Listen, don't let them take your life for a pair of £200 trainers, whatever. Like I'd rather buy you back the trainers and you're still alive.
You're safe.
Like there's no shame in it. And I think having those kind of conversations with our kids, knowing the society that they're living in, if your kids are taking the train, if they are taking buses, having those kind of conversations so that they
can safeguard themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that story? I think I can't remember if it was in the news or was it. Remember when Ashley was going to that college? Yeah. Wasn't there a boy that got? I think they killed him or something from a schoolboy. Yeah. These guys crossed over to the other platform, wasn't that where Ashley? Yeah, do you remember that incident? Yeah. For what reason?
Yeah, I can't remember that.
I can't remember the story properly, but it was just for no reason whatsoever.
But I think that's what we've got to realise, that most of these crimes are being committed by 15, 14
children.
12, 11-year-old kids that really don't have a concept of consequence.
Wasn't there a murder the other day as well with some
12-year-olds?
A 12-year-old.
2 12-year-olds, and they killed a 19-year-old.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
And so I just think
your 12-year-old
but that's
child.
the thing, we're not going to change society. So we need to arm ourselves for the society we live in and make sure that our children don't contribute to the demise of this society.
Yeah. So if you've got children, just teach them yourself to be street savvy, not to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Don't start fight. Don't get involved, because a lot of the times it's the one that goes to help. Yeah. And I know it sounds wrong.
Always. Even the other day, my friends at an event, random, it's just a fight was breaking out, and this guy hit this girl. And he's like, yo, what you doing? And then next thing, the girl bottled him.
The girl
like in the middle, like, there's a whole big fight going on, and he's got some big cocoa. And he's just like,
and he went to defend.
I should have just mind my business, doing good deeds.
Yeah.
It's always the case. It's always the one that's not involved
that goes to try and
getting stabbed, shot, or God forbid what else. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's always those are usually the ones that's been raised right. Like, God forbid it never happened to me, thank God. But like, I would have been that person where if I see a guy hit a girl, I can't just sit there and like get a girl get thumped down or whatever. Whatever happened before, I don't know. But if I see that, I'm more than likely stepping in. And that's that's usually the demise of
but the sad thing is nowadays, we've just got to think long term. And we've got to think of consequence. And at the end of the day, it's coming home to our children. It's coming home to our families.
You have to think about
to give up the right to be right. At the end of the day, that guy getting angry on the road, if I keep my face straight and I don't respond, after a while, he's going to get tired.
And it's possible, but it's possible. You're only going to... Do you remember that time we were going to a ladies' breakfast, actually? It was me, you and Danny in the car.
Yeah,
and
I remember,
we were in the car, so this guy indicates in a van to turn left. It's a one-way street, so I go to proceed. He decides it's a wrong road, so he swings back out, but I've already gone past him. He now, it's like he becomes demon possessed and he starts chasing us. I mean, he is on my bumper. Do you remember? We did not do anything wrong. He is coming up on my car, like one of those movies. And he's coming up the side of me. And it was so nerve-wracking, Dom. I phoned Reese, because Reese always used to make sure some of the guys would be at the breakfast waiting for us. I said, Reese, I'm going to just bring the car here. Rather than go to the car park, because there's this man following me and he's got serious rage. I said, I'm just going to pull up by the hotel so that you guys are there. You could take the car, because he flipped, but it was his fault. He went to turn. I'm not going to wait for you to decide that you're going to come back out on the road that you were going to turn into. But he switched because I went past him. Yeah. I had one guy one time. I was coming off the junction to go home, and I was too close behind him. That was it. I was too close behind his car. He got out his car. I remember it was snowing. He started scraping the snow off his car and snowballing
Childish.
me.
we do.
So
You keep a baseball bat in your boot, right?
No,
and then
don't.
But you have to buy like the ball and the mitt as well, just in case police stop you. So it's like,
and do what?
For protection.
Oh, okay.
But we don't want to get to that, because that can also be turned against you.
Okay.
No.
Or it's just self-defense and I just happen to have it, you know.
No, but it also can turn very easy. That's the whole point.
I'm a big baseball fan.
That the minute that you put yourself into the equation, you give
it's more of a
yourself
self-defense though. Someone runs up on you.
What if their self-defense is that they've got a gun or a knife?
Oh, touche.
Yeah, then you're
Touche.
like, you know what?
Touche what?
No, but I think if we
you can't get a gun, so
we're out of time. So I'm just gonna say
knives.
but the reality is that, no, but the reality is that if you look at the whole scenario and the whole situation, you're becoming irate or annoyed with someone because they've potentially put your life in danger. So you spend the next 20 minutes putting your life in more danger than they ever could have.
Doesn't make no sense.
It literally doesn't make any sense. And even you getting out of the car,
you're already in control in that you have got your vehicle and you can move away from the situation.
The minute you get out of your car, you've made yourself vulnerable. The minute you brought a weapon
you've stepped out of a major protective environment. And I remember your dad would always say to me, "Oh, didn't you see what that person done to you? That person cut you up." And I said, and I remember I used to say to him, "I'm in control of my emotions."
Yeah.
And he'd get so mad at me because he wanted me to react.
I don't know what type of vengeance he's got in his blood, boy, where he pass it down.
But I made a decision. You know what? I'm doing this London run every single day for work. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to
Before you even get there.
I don't want anyone to have the power to put me into this place of this negative where my emotions are all over the place. And I started controlling that. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to ignore you. I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction. You can say what you want. I'm not going to read your lips. I'm not going to read your hand signals. I'm just going to keep my face straight and keep going. And over time, I don't even see it now. Sometimes you'll say to me, "Oh, did you see that?" I'm like, "No, I didn't see nothing. I don't see nothing." And you just stay in your space because there are too many crazies out there. When I'm in my car, I can move at a greater speed, and that's why I like to have a fast car, because if I encounter a weirdo on the road, I'm gone. I'm just gonna put my foot down, and I'm out of this environment. I can get away, and it's always get yourself away. And I think that's one thing we can teach our children, and we can share that, keep that with ourselves. Also, get out of that environment that is dangerous.
You don't know someone's mental instability, really. And even that movie that I've mentioned before, where these guys kind of make a pass at the girl, and she I think she sticks her fingers up at them, like, "Get lost, you losers" type thing. And I think she says something along those lines. And then as a result, they follow her home, the one where he lives in the cave in the mansion thing. And ends up
the Bruce Willis one,
hostage or something
hostage,
like that. And then he ends up breaking into the home, and but it was because she reacted. And I think the reality is, if we could foresee, that's the thing, hindsight is hindsight because it's hindsight. I think that the takeaway from this is we don't know who we're dealing with, and the best thing to do.
You don't want someone following you as well.
But you don't want to get involved in anything that you don't need to. And when I was younger, yes, I was very, quick to react. But now that I've got 3 young people that rely on me to come home every day, and I don't want anyone else raising my kids. That's the reality, and there is nothing that would be worth me not being there for them. And I think that when we allow ourselves to think at the bigger picture, that's going to be the thing that pulls us back and reins us back in and goes, you know what, is this worth it? It's not worth it for a moment of insanity, because that's what it is. It says losing your temper. You lose your temper.
Well, you lose you have a moment of insanity, and that's what it is. And I think that's what people don't realize. When we get into that place of rage, we literally lose our sanity for a moment. I'll never forget this woman I encountered. She was I was passing her on a stairway, and she was beating her child with her shoe. And I remember trying to get through to her, like, what are you doing? And I was trying to stop her. She did not see me. She did not hear me. She was totally in a different place. And when you just literally, when a person is there, they're in a place of insanity for that moment. They're doing something that they wouldn't normally do if they were in their right frame of mind. And it's to make sure that we are not engaging, because you can't reason with somebody when they're there.
No.
When they're in that place, you can't get through. They can't see.
Yeah, they're not seeing anything else.
Even when someone loses, it takes a moment for them to come back down, because they're up here.
Yeah.
You know,
we're out of time.
We're out of time.
Yes,
but
we
guys, stay safe. Stay in your lane.
Think before you act.
Think before you act. There is, there is just so many scenarios I can think of off the top of my head where you can just be even mind your own business, walking down the street and somebody who is not well. So stay street savvy. Be mindful if you've got headphones on, because if you've got headphones on, I know somebody that just in a moment of insanity just ran a pedestrian down, and killed them. So just make sure you can hear, walk facing the traffic that's coming towards you. If that makes sense, don't walk so if the traffic's going that way, don't walk so the traffic's coming up behind you. Cross the road so you're walking towards traffic that's coming, so you can see the driver. That makes sense. And learn to just be aware of your environment, aware of people around you, and just don't engage. Just stay safe. We live in a very volatile world today, and it's a scary place. So be safe and take care of your family, and don't get yourself into situations that's going to bring things into your life that up the road you're not going to want to deal with.
Everything's a choice, and everything has a consequence. So make sure that the consequence is one that you're happy to live with.
Dom, do you have a closing word for everyone?
I think know who you're dating, know their mental health history or their family history.
That's a whole nother one we can talk about next time, maybe.
No, but just from the whole thing that's happened in Watford, it's like there was a history. This is brothers, obviously.
Now it's taken out a whole family.
You might not think that would affect you in that sense, but it has. And unfortunately, a man's been left without his 2 daughters and his wife,
and
family,
basically.
That's horrific. In their house, he can't even live in that house now. So, and that's just from whoever his daughter was dating. Unfortunately, that's the case. But just be wary about who you're dating. A lot of people just aren't actually
thinking that way.
Who they say they are or who they show you they are.
Yeah.
So
especially with the internet, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or if someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Yes. You'll see the signs if you're looking for them.
Yeah. Look for them.
Yeah.
Don't be so caught up with somebody because of their looks.
Or that lovey-dovey.
It's just looks is one thing. Some of the most attractive people are there is not a look for somebody who's actually not all there. There isn't actually. The sad thing is,
the girl's parents might have even told her about him. Like your parents usually can tell when someone's
parents usually see through.
Yeah, so we're praying for the father and that space.
And everyone that's been affected by knife crime and gun crime and these senseless acts. Honestly, our prayers go out to all of those families because it's a horrible society that we've been left with today, and our heartfelt prayers go out to everybody that's been impacted by anything like this. We really, really do keep you in our prayers.
Definitely.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time.